We are on to week 8 of the NFL season. I'm Nick Whalen. He's John McKechnie. We're here to give you each of our 3 best bets of the week. John, this is always the highlight of my week, diving in on these sides, these totals with you. We each got 3 great plays that we feel good about for week 8, and we are coming off a week 7. It was a big one for the favorites. A lot of chalk out there. Favorites go 12-3 straight up, 10-5 against the number. Big week for home teams as well, 10-5 straight up and against the spread. Saw home favorites go 8-1 straight up. The LA Chargers, the only team to ruin what would have been a perfect straight up week for home favorites. But we now turn the page to week 8. We got 6 teams on bye, John, and we're not going to get into the fantasy ramifications here on this show. I will tell you, I got some really ugly lineups that I am not happy to roll out. We got some teams that might put up like 68 fantasy points this week, but that is secondary here because we are going to give you our best bets of the week. We each have our 3 plays. We'll get into a little survivor talk. We'll talk about which games we are completely staying away from this week. We'll give you our props, parlays, a little teaser, and then our locks of the week to finish things out. John, as always, please lead us off. Tell me why the Buffalo Bills are going to cover 7 against the Carolina Panthers.
I just think it's a bit of an overreaction to how the Bills came into the bye week. You know, you lose 2 straight in prime time. It's like a very public losing streak for this Bills team. I still think their A game is among the best, if not the best in the AFC, maybe the NFL. I think their B game covers 7 points against the Panthers. The Panthers, you know, I honestly don't really care who's playing quarterback for the Panthers. I think the Bills with a week to stew on their 2-game losing streak, I think they're going to come out firing here. I saw a stat: Josh Allen is 6-3-1 against the spread in the other instances where he's lost 2 straight, and he's 9-1 straight up. So if you still have the Bills in Survivor, probably something to consider there as well. This Panthers team, you win 3 straight against 3 of the worst teams, worst defenses in the NFL. I don't think the Cowboys are that bad, really. But obviously their defense, especially back then, needed some serious help. As the Panthers showed, Rico Dowdle, he buckled his chin strap in that one. But ultimately, it's a friendly number. I think the market might be overthinking it a little bit. I think the Bills can win this one by double digits.
Yeah, I'm with you on this, John. I think the Panthers thing is getting a little too cute for my liking. You know, it's been a nice story. Panthers are 4-3. You know, the running game has shown up the last couple of weeks, but I think the resume to me is still not all that impressive. Dallas win means something to me. That was kind of the one game where we saw, you know, both units really show up for Carolina. They're scoring. They got some big stops late in that game. But Buffalo's coming off of 2 straight losses. They're coming out of the bye week. They should be healthier on defense. I'm with you here. I will ask, though, how much does the quarterback situation matter? Andy Dalton starting this game instead of Bryce Young. Is that a downgrade? Is it a slight upgrade? Where are we at on Dalton?
I think it's about neutral, maybe a slight upgrade for Carolina. I mean, Bryce Young has not played particularly well this year. Like, the only time he's played well is like the about a month stretch late in the year last year that gave me some false hope for this Panthers team coming in. But ultimately, it's not a talented roster across the board. The Bills just have an edge almost any way you want to line this one up. I just think that over the course of the game, and we know that Dalton can turn it over. I know that there's been instances late in his career as like that veteran backup who can give the Panthers like a little bit of a jolt, a little bit of juice. I don't think that that's the case here. The Bills, they screwed around these last 2 games. Not going to happen this time.
All right, John, for my first game, I'm taking us to the biggest number of the week. You and I walked together into the fire on the Kansas City Chiefs a week ago. I have a bunch of numbers I could throw out if we want to get into just how much of a colossal beatdown that was of the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know if it's going to be this bad this time around, but give me the Colts minus 13.5 at home. I'm surprised this has dipped under 14 with some of the injury situations that we have going on for the Titans, but a lot of reasons here that I trust the Colts. I know it's a big number. I know sometimes you just want to take the points regardless of who the opponent is, but I think this Titans team is that bad. I still think they're the worst team in the NFL. I know they have a win. I know the Jets don't. The Jets are making a run for the money as far as being that worst team, but it's still Tennessee for me. Obviously, we saw Indy already blow out this Titans team in Nashville earlier this season. And at that point, we were still kind of wondering, like, all right, how real is this Colts start? What do we take from that Miami game in week 1? I mean, we now have an even bigger sample to suggest that this Colts team is an absolute wagon. I mean, just the last 3 weeks, they put 40 on the Raiders. They did all their scoring in 2 quarters in that game. You put 31 on Arizona, 38 on the LA Chargers. These are quality opponents. Not only are the Colts number one in EPA, number one in success rate, number one in EPA per rush, second in EPA per pass, they're the best offense, John, in terms of points per drive in the last 25 plus years. Better than the 07 Pats, better than the peak Aaron Rodgers Packers, the peak Drew Brees Saints, last year's Lions are up there. We could quibble about the schedule. I think it's about average so far. Yeah, there's been a couple of bad teams in there, but everybody's played at least one or two bad teams by this point in the season. I don't think that the schedule is the reason that this team looks as good as it does. On the other side of this game, Calvin Ridley hasn't practiced all week. Jeffrey Simmons is not going to play. The Titans just placed L'Jarius Sneed on IR. Like those are like three of your 4 or 5 best players on this entire roster, which has done nothing this entire year. I know the Colts defense, it has shown some cracks. Maybe they do let up a couple fluky scores in this game. I just don't see Tennessee stopping the Indianapolis offense. It's just so many weapons. We're at the point with Daniel Jones where I think we kind of place him in the Sam Darnold zone. And it's just like, all right, maybe this is who he is now. And maybe he's not going to play at this sustained level every single week. But I don't think he's just going to zap back to being the Daniel Jones of old. In summation here, the Tennessee Titans, they've already lost 4 games by at least 14 points this season. I think this Colts team is on a mission. I think they want to embarrass teams week to week. They have the talent to do it. They have the coach to do it. I think they run away with this game. They cover the 13.5. All right, John, we have some overlap with our final 2 here. We'll save Packers Steelers for our last game. I'll tip off the viewers here. We are on opposite sides of that one, which doesn't happen very often on this show. But you're looking at Buccaneers Saints down in New Orleans. I have a play on that game as well. I'll let you lead it off. Looking at the Saints to cover 4.5.
I am. So I think this is one where you'll want to, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, do this now as opposed to waiting over the weekend, because we've seen this get down to 3.5 at ESPN Bet as far as the Buccaneers being favored. I know that Baker Mayfield has not been great at covering on the road in divisional games in the course of his career. I know that the Baker sample, if you really play it historically, it can be a little bit misleading. He had the weird time with the Browns, everything like that, and it didn't really get rolling until he got to Tampa Bay, everything like that. And I think you can also point to the fact that so I'm sort of working against myself here. Like Spencer Rattler has been really bad against the spread as an underdog of 10 or more points. Like really, he's kind of needed like those huge numbers, like the 14.5, I think, against the Bills earlier this year to find a good instance of backing him. But I'm just wondering if we've kind of reached critical mass with this Buccaneers injury situation. I think Mike Evans going out last week was sort of like the icing on the cake. You already have Chris Godwin not going to be able to play in this one. You don't know if Emeka Egbuka is going to be at 100% here. It's a short week. They just got beat up pretty bad. The Saints, as their record would dictate, they're not a good team, but I think they're tough. They're not quite the pushovers that I expected them to be coming into the year. And ultimately, the Buccaneers can kind of be guilty of playing too close of games against teams that they are better than. So Saints getting 4.5 at home. I'm taking that number. I just think the Bucs are really, really banged up. The Saints not quite as much. And, the Bucs, they just got to get through this week, that maybe win by a field goal, get to the bye, rest up, heal up a little bit. But divisional game like this one, the Saints want this one. I think that they make this one a game.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the bye week next week for Tampa Bay. I think that is, it's kind of it's like a pre-bye trap game, if that makes sense. Like no team needs the bye more right now than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Maybe the 49ers would be the other one. But I think there is maybe a look ahead spot there. It's in division, it's on the road. So I like that. I'm looking at the under 47 in this game as one of my plays. I like a handful of unders. Browns Pats is one, the under 41 and a half, excuse me, now, and Niners Texans is also pretty appealing. Those ones just missed the card, but I just struggle to get to 47 in this game. You mentioned all the absences for Tampa Bay, Godwin, Evans, we'll see on Egbuka. I think he probably plays, but maybe he's not 100%. Baker was even on the injury report earlier this week with a knee. Bucky Irving, of course, is still going to miss this game. Tampa Bay has proven over and over that even with this ragtag crew of receivers plus Kate Otten, like they could still push the ball downfield. I thought Baker missed a ton of throws against Detroit. That game probably should have been a little bit closer. We'll see if they can run on New Orleans. The Saints defense has held up pretty well for the most part this season. Chicago did run all over them last week, over 200 yards on the ground. So if Tampa Bay can run the ball, maybe that bodes well. Fewer big plays through the air, you're ripping off more time off the clock. The Saints, though, are kind of the side here that I think pulls this under. I mean, 5 of their 7 games have finished at 47 or lower this season. They haven't scored more than 26 points in any game. They've been under 20 in 5 of 7. They had 21 in the other outlier game in that sample. There's just no firepower in that offense. They hit a couple of big plays to Chris Olave last week, but that was partially because they were going in like take a shot mode early in the second quarter because they kept turning it over and couldn't do anything early on. They're the worst first quarter offense in the NFL this season in terms of points scored. And look, for as well as Spencer Rattler has played on balance relative to Spencer Rattler expectations, he looked terrible last week. Absolutely terrible. That was the return of the Rat Man. He had that play where he scrambled out to the left. He's directing traffic, and you just knew he was throwing a pick, and that's exactly what he did. I just don't trust the Saints offense. They're bad on third down. They're even worse when they have to go for it on fourth. They're a bad red zone team. Converted only 9 of 20 red zone attempts into touchdowns this season. That's 28th in the NFL. So I think you kind of laid out the case for why Tampa Bay could struggle. I don't really trust the Saints. Now they're down Kendra Miller. You got even fewer weapons in that offense. I think this is a low-scoring slobber knocker, for lack of a better term, of a divisional game. I think we go well under 47. All right, John, that leads us to our third and final game. Sunday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers going up against the Green Bay Packers. You are taking the Steelers with the points. I am taking Green Bay to cover 2.5. By the way, a 2.5 popped up at ESPN Bet this afternoon. I like this at 3. I liked it a lot more at 2.5, but I'll let you lead us off. Why are the Steelers going to prove me wrong?
Well, we didn't get to talk about the Steelers last week because they were playing the Thursday night game, but thought it was a danger spot for them going up against the Bengals on the road as favorites. Generally, that's the good spot to fade the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. Home underdog is usually the time to jump back on board. Saw a stat: Tomlin is 25-14 against the spread as a dog, coming off of a loss. That number is 12-3 when he's a home dog in that particular setup. This Packers team also has kind of concerned me in the last couple of weeks. I mean, they didn't have a particularly great game against the Bengals themselves, with that being Flacco's first start in particular. I thought that Cardinals game was, I don't think it's been talked about enough. That was kind of a sweat for the Packers as well. Maybe you feel differently. Steelers extended rest here relative to Green Bay at home. They're just going to play them tough. I don't really give a crap about the Aaron Rodgers revenge factor here. That doesn't really clock in my opinion here, but I think the Steelers defensively, they can make some splash plays. I know the Packers can on their part, but the Packers, I don't trust them to really pull away from teams right now with the lack of explosiveness that they have, especially through the air. So, we saw the Steelers get really punished by a Flacco offense last week because you got Jamar Chase, you got T. Higgins, you got Fant even going crazy. Chase Brown for once got going. I don't think that the Packers offense has that same level of weaponry, and I don't think that Jordan Love is playing at an overly high level right now to make the Steelers faults in the back end really come through here. So for me, again, you got to get it at 3. You want to insulate yourself here, but I think you still can do that over at Bet Rivers. Steelers, I like them.
I'll disagree on Jordan Love, man. I think Jordan Love is actually playing really well. There was one questionable throw in the Arizona game where he threw into double coverage. I believe he was looking for Romeo Doubs over the middle, and it was one of those, how is that not intercepted type of throws? Other than that, I don't think Love has had very many of those. I think he's kind of been limited numbers-wise by the way the Packers are operating this offense, which is hit some big plays early and then just shut it down and, go to this jet sweep and bubble screen raid and don't throw the ball more than 7 yards down the field. I think when they've asked Love to perform at a high level, he's answered the bell. I mean, you think back to that Dallas game. I know it's the Cowboys secondary, but it's over and over. Jordan Love is making huge throws. Had the throw of the day on 4th down in that Cardinals game. Packers, pulled the field goal unit off the field. They send the offense back out. And this was not 4th and inches. It was a 4th and 4, 4th and 5. And, Jordan Love progresses through, floats a perfect ball to Tucker Kraft along the sideline that really enabled the Packers to win that game. So I really don't have too many questions about Jordan Love right now. This play for me, John, is more about concerns for the Pittsburgh defense. I think for so long, you just assume it's the Steelers. They'll have a top 10 defense. They do it every year. This is just not a very good unit. It's really not. They are 25th in EPA per play. They're 22nd in opponent success rate, 20th in EPA per pass, 21st in EPA per rush. And I don't think this has been a difficult schedule so far. You face Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, Drake May, and that was a game where the Patriots turned it over 5 times. Carson Wentz, Dylan Gabriel, and Joe Flacco. And this isn't, to me, overreacting to what we saw from Flacco last week. I thought Flacco was fine. That was more about just how is Jamar Chase wide open again and again. It's not like Flacco was making these unbelievable throws. Like that was alarming. But the more alarming thing is the fact that Cincinnati was able to run the ball. Like Cincy can't run on anybody. That's been the worst run offense in the NFL outside of the Raiders all season long. Chase Brown, every week, it's like 13 for 31 yards. And all of a sudden, he's ripping off 10 yards per carry on the Steelers defense. So I get the Packers have been disappointing relative to weeks 1 and weeks 2, especially defensively when it looked like that might be the best defense in the NFL. Every week, they kind of leave you wanting a little bit more. But I also think you could say that about like every team in the NFL right now. Like what fan base is totally content with how their team is playing outside of maybe Indianapolis? I think, me being here in Wisconsin and talking to Packers fans all the time, I'm trying to tell people like, this is fine. They're going to be okay. They're going to be just fine. On top of that, Green Bay, they're probably getting Devontae Wyatt back this week. That is massive. Micah Parsons himself said it after the Dallas game. Like this is a completely different defense when Wyatt's out there. Should get Christian Watson back. They could get Lucas Van Ness back this week. This will basically be as healthy as the Packers have been all year. And, again, going back to that Steelers defense, I think this is a spot where they're going to have to stop Josh Jacobs. He has not had an overly efficient season. His yards per carry is down like 0.7 per carry compared to last season, but they continue to pound him. I think they can win this game on the ground. I think you have enough talent in that wide receiver core overall to test that secondary. And, the Steelers, what do you have offensively? There's a reason Aaron Rodgers has the lowest ADOT in the NFL this season. You can get away with that against lesser opponents. I don't think you can against Green Bay. So I think the Packers walk into Pittsburgh and win this game fairly convincingly. Your biggest stay away of the week?
My biggest stay away was also that Atlanta game. It's just I cannot trust them with more than a touchdown. Even as bad as Miami is and as good as, if Atlanta just opts to not throw the ball and just has it be the Bijan day, they probably cover this, but you can't trust them to do that. So I can't quite get there with the Falcons. I like them occasionally as an underdog because I think that defense is solid, but not as a big favorite. Definitely not yet. And then the other one, I just don't know what to do with either the 49ers or the Texans. I suppose I would take the points there with the Niners getting 1.5, but that's another tricky spot for me. I think that the Texans, outside of like 1 or 2 games, have largely been extremely disappointing this year, in my opinion. And the Niners are just so banged up.
Yeah.
I would lean Niners again, but that to me registered as a stay away.
Houston getting 4 turnovers and still not really competing in that Seattle game. That told me what I needed to see. You're right about the Niners being banged up, but that's got to be a San Francisco spot for me. Bears Ravens is my stay away, John. I don't know what to expect from Baltimore. Even before the injuries set in, they were struggling. The defense looked terrible. I do think the Ricard thing really matters a ton as far as getting Derrick Henry going. And I do think the Bears 4-game winning streak, a little fluky. They have a 15-2 turnover advantage in that span. Like there's at least 2 games, if not 3 in there that they don't win if they don't force 3 or 4 turnovers. So as long as Baltimore takes care of the ball, I think they should win and cover that game, but we will see. That was more of a stay away for me. All right, let's talk a little Survivor here. Before we do that, a reminder that we are brought to you by the good folks over at the Circa Resort and Casino. It's football season. The best place to catch the games is at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, featuring the best pool in history, Stadium Swim. 3 levels, 6 pools, a 143-foot diagonal screen. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Stadium Swim is America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you, from owner suites to cabanas, day beds to stadium booths. There's seating choices for everyone. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year with temperature-controlled pools. It's a great place to catch all the games all season long. Stadium Swim, located at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Go check it out. Book your stay today at circalasvegas.com. So minimal carnage once again in week 7 in Survivor, John. Thanks in large part to the Broncos, rallying back to take care of the Giants. We only had 204 entries eliminated, so a little over 4,200 move on to week 8 in Circa Survivor. Implied value creeping up close to $4,500 per entry. 29% of the field was on the Kansas City Chiefs, 28% on New England, 18% on Chicago, 10% on Denver. We had a little over 4% go out on the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday night. And then a marginal number of entries went out on the Chargers, the Jets, the Dolphins, Atlanta, Washington, and 4 no picks in week 7. I mean, Denver and Green Bay were obviously the ones that could have changed things. That would have been another 600-ish entries had both of those teams gone down.
Right. So I think all's too quiet on the Western Front. I think that a chaos week is coming. I think it could be this week. I think, to me, the Falcons are that one team that a lot of people are going to push their chips to the middle on, and I think it could be a bit of a sweat on Sunday. And that, again, it's nothing to say about the Dolphins. Like I think that they are truly one of the worst teams and one of the worst vibes teams out there. But the Falcons, it seems like they could blow this for everybody that invests in them. And then, so I like the idea of sneaking the Bengals through this week if I can. But exactly right. Like, I mean, that's just an instant reaction. The Jets can just pull you in the mud somehow. I mean, the Broncos, that game in London was one of the worst football games ever played, at least this century. So I think that, like, that's a potential spot. Again, I like the Bengals a bit this week. That they're obviously like the huge favorites, like the Colts and the Chiefs, that I think are, if you still got them, go ahead and fire those in. Do you feel a little bit odd about the Patriots this week too? I know the Browns haven't even covered a spread in 8 straight road games, so I know they're terrible on the road. You feel silly like betting on the Browns, especially in a road spot, but like, could they, give the Patriots a little bit of run for their money too?
I think it's possible. New England's obviously the better team, and Cleveland is so limited offensively that's kind of the concern. But I mean, the Patriots are 5-2. They've won 4 in a row. 4 of their wins have come over the Dolphins, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Titans. Like, I'm not quite ready to anoint New England as like a potential 1 seed in the AFC. I know the schedule is really easy the rest of the way. Like, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're not fully in the circle of trust. I think New England, Atlanta, Cincinnati, like, they all make sense for varying reasons. You're not going to feel fully comfortable with any of them. I think if you haven't used Indy, this is the obvious spot to do it. Not only are they huge favorites, but there's not another good spot on the schedule for the Colts. If you have KC in non-circa, I think there's certainly a case there with no Jaden Daniels. Even New England was heavily used last week. So I think a lot of people are going to be in that Atlanta and Cincinnati basket. Would you dare trust the Ravens in Survivor, John?
Ooh. Even though I said that I think I like them to cover, when it's Survivor, you got to see it before you can fully believe it. And the Ravens haven't really looked good since week 2. And it's been rough going. Yeah. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's been out for 2.5 of those games, but this is his first game back. We don't know what he looks like exactly. So even if you are, a little bit out on the Bears right now, I'd try to. The Ravens have, looking at like schedule analysis, the Ravens schedule does get a fair bit softer here in the second half of the season. So I'd take this opportunity to keep a close eye on Baltimore and then plug them in at a later date.
That's the thing, because you don't want to get burned in this spot with so many ifs coming off of a bye. Like, oh, well, everybody's going to be coming back. Like, again, Baltimore did not look great. They were not this wagon team by any means before the injuries. And if they do look like that team, if they come out and smack the Chicago Bears, then all of a sudden, okay, that faith is restored and you'll feel a lot better about using them in future spots. So I think you lay that out well. Indy, unsurprisingly, projected to be the highest used team this week, followed by Atlanta, then Cincinnati, then New England. I have 3 entries remaining, John. I'm going to do 2 on the Colts. And as of right now, the other one's going on Atlanta. I already used the Colts on my 3rd entry. I'm not going to feel good about it. The script is there for how to win this game. We saw it last week with the Cleveland Browns, right? And Atlanta is a better team than Cleveland. I know Penix is banged up. I think what they should do is what they did week 2 against Minnesota. Just Penix throws the ball 15 to 20 times. You're pounding Bijan Robinson. You're pounding Tyler Algier. And the Atlanta defense is also good. I think that's part of this as well. Like, this is a much better unit than it's been in years past. So it's really about just can you avoid this like colossal mistake game where like Penix throws 3 interceptions.
They should,
They
again,
should.
I see the rationale, and I do think that it's a good point that this Falcons defense is solid. And I mean, Miami is so shorthanded. I just think that on like an overarching
Yeah.
point, the Falcons are a little bit hard to trust.
Yeah, well, we're getting to that point in the year, man. I mean, if you've used KC, if you've used Indy, there's not going to be an ultra comfortable spot in
Nope.
Week 8.
I've used
Again,
all the
check
good
out.
teams.
Yeah, right. Again, please check out circalasvegas.com, especially if you've never been to Circa, if you've never been to Stadium Swim. Take it from us. Not all pools are open year round. Most of them are shutting down this time of year. So if you want the true Vegas experience in the winter, make sure you go do that over at Circa. All right, John, let's run through some of our favorite props to target this week. What do you got?
All right, so try to get back to where we did last week. Had a couple good ones. Had that Judkins 2 touchdown game. I think the 2 touchdown price on Bijan is not good enough. I think to
No.
bet it comfortably. I think it's like under 2 to 1 or something. So I can't do that with a 2 touchdowner. So my props are. I'm gonna go J.K. Dobbins over 66.5 rushing yards. He's gone over this in 5 of his last 6 games. The outlier being, of course, that terrible, no good, very bad Jets game. I like Tyler Algier, a little over 43.5 rushing yards. I think you can also talk yourself into an anytime touchdown and garbage time for Tyler Algier. I don't think Miami can stop the run whatsoever. Big running back week for me, even though it's National Tight End Week. Rico Dowdle over 48.5 rushing yards against Buffalo. I don't like this Buffalo run defense. That is one thing. And I think that Carolina is going to have to move the ball on the ground. And I think that last week, the big question is, what does the workload split look like once Chuba Hubbard is back? Chuba did not look remotely as effective as Dowdle has been over these last 3 weeks or so. I think Dowdle is clearly their best option that they've got right now. 48.5. I think that's a gettable number for him. I'll dip one more spicy one at you. You'll have to keep an eye on the injury report because I don't believe he was practicing today, and that was a new thing. But I think the Ravens are going to get DeAndre Hopkins more involved in the offense here in the second half of the season. On a per target basis, he's been unbelievable this year, like 14 yards a target, huge catch rate. I think they're tired of Bateman's act. I think we started to see him get more snaps right before the bye. DeAndre Hopkins anytime touchdown at FanDuel or at DraftKings, I'm sorry, is 5-1. That's the best price I could find. 5-1 is pretty awesome for a guy that I think is a primo red zone target even at this stage.
I like it. I like it a lot. 5-1. That feels like a really good price on Hopkins. I'm going to give you T. Higgins over 55.5 receiving yards. I think the Jets will be keying on Jamar Chase for obvious reasons. Sauce Gardner likely out for this game. I think this is a spot where we'll see if Cincinnati can run again, but probably a heavy pass script. George Pickens over 57.5 receiving yards. Denver last in the NFL in average depth of target allowed. I think CeeDee Lamb being back, that opens things up down the field. We see a few shots for Pickens. On the other side of that game, Cortland Sutton, over 4.5 receptions. The Dallas secondary, really bad. Allowed the most passing yards, second most yards per attempt. Cowboys 26th in average depth of target allowed. Seeing a healthy target share is Sutton every week. It's not been the year that we hoped for that passing game, but I think Denver has to try to push the ball down the field on that Dallas defense. I'm with you on Tyler Algier, over 43.5 rushing yards. I don't even think this has to be garbage time. Like, he's mixing in plenty. Already has 4 games this season with at least 10 carries. He has split the red zone carries so far with Bijan Robinson, 13 apiece so far this season. So we will also tack on an Algier anytime touchdown at plus 135. Josh Jacobs, over 68.5 rushing yards. He's gone over this number in 3 of 6 thus far. Workload is there every week. Like I said earlier, he's averaging just 3.7 yards per carry. That's down compared to last season, about 10 fewer yards per game, but he's carrying the ball 2 more times per game than he was a year ago. So I think going up against this Steelers rush defense that has not been good, we see more of Josh Jacobs. And then our anytime touchdowns, Tyler Algier, Josh Jacobs, it's minus 190, 3-1 if you want to go up to 2 touchdowns for Jacobs. He's done that now in 3 straight games. Dalton Kincaid, plus 210, going up against the worst tight end defense in the NFL in the Carolina Panthers, or actually the second worst. Cincinnati has taken that mantle after giving up 3 touchdowns to tight ends last week. And Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. Starting to see more Pacheco these last few weeks. I think the Chiefs offense should have its way with that Commanders team on Monday night. All right, John, your parlay of the week, we're just going to keep it standard here. You're just going to parlay your 3 games. So Bills -7, Saints +4.5, Steelers +3. We got a little exotic last week. We were going with some dogs. We had a totals parlay a couple weeks ago. We're going to mix it up here and look at some of these closer line games. So give me the Green Bay money line, the San Francisco money line, and the Dallas Cowboys to go into Denver, win that game straight up. That gets you close to 7-1 at DraftKings.